Halloween is a holiday filled with fun costume parties, houses adorned with spooky decorations, glowing jack-o'-lanterns, and children knocking on neighbors' doors for treats. It's a time of scary tales, ghostly legends, and stories of evil forces wandering among people. Yet everyone knows these are merely imaginative myths. For New Jersey native Stephanie Parz, however, Halloween week in 2019 became a true nightmare. It started with a sudden illness that nearly claimed her life, followed by a dead bird and smeared handprints on her bathroom mirror. Living alone in a large house at only 25, Stephanie saw these as terrifying omens. Sadly, the invented terrors of the season turned into horrifying truth. Please support this channel's growth, like the video, explore the new hype feature, leave a comment, and subscribe for more stories. Your help means a lot. Thank you. Back in 1982, Edward Parz met his fate. Her name was Charlene Quinn. Ed and Charlene were both high school students. He was passionate about art classes and, on his first day, noticed the most stunning girl he had ever seen. It was love at first sight. However, the senior girl didn't even glance his way, which only deepened his fascination. One day, Ed unexpectedly stood up, walked over, and sat beside her. When Charlene looked at him in surprise, he smiled and said he didn't bite, and by the way, his name was Ed. That moment marked the beginning of their friendship, which soon blossomed into a tender romance. After graduation, Ed got a job in security, while Charlene became a telephone operator. Their wedding took place on the 15th of September, 1991, at the Chapel of Street, Rose of Lima, in Freehold, New Jersey. Looking at the newlyweds, one could easily imagine a bright life ahead, and indeed, that's how it unfolded. Charlene worked in customer service, while Ed joined the sheriff's department as an emergency services operator and volunteer rescuer. He also founded a limousine rental business. Soon, Charlene discovered she was pregnant. On the 19th of February 1994, their first daughter, Stephanie Nicole Parz, was born, a tiny bundle of joy that gave Ed and Charlene the proud new titles of mom and dad. In the following years, the Parz family grew with 3 more daughters, Brianna, Cararissa, and Haley. Even surrounded by girls, Ed proudly became the best father imaginable. His life now revolved around spending as much time as possible with his children. Every day, the Parz family gathered in their living room to play board games. During vacations, Ed and Charlene took the kids fishing, hiking through forests, relaxing at the beach, or joining rafting adventures. They visited Disney's Magic Kingdom, Animal Kingdom, and other amusement parks. Each Christmas season, Ed and the girls decorated the house with sparkling lights, set up yard figures, and joined contests for the most magical display. The Parz family lived in a cozy 2-story house at the end of the street, easily recognizable by its dazzling decorations. It was in this warm environment of love and care that Stephanie's outgoing spirit blossomed. Friends and relatives called her a firecracker. She grew up confident, fearless of opinions, independent, loyal, generous, and full of optimism. Family activities nurtured her passion for sports. She joined the school softball team, attended baseball games with her father, and rooted for the local hockey team. She loved bowling with her sisters. Sports connected her deeply with others. With her mother, Charlene, she enjoyed shoe shopping, constantly expanding her collection. She adored her dog, Jasmine. Yet her greatest passion was art, drawing, painting, sculpting, ceramics, and creating eerie story illustrations. As Stephanie grew older, her love for visual arts found expression through makeup. After finishing high school, she enrolled in a cosmetology school. The program was demanding, focusing on makeup artistry, skincare, nail design, waxing, and hair treatment. To earn her cosmetology license in New Jersey, she had to complete 1,200 training hours, which took a full year. Stephanie's natural creativity flourished. Her artistic talent appeared not only in her professional work, but also in her unique appearance. She colored her hair in every shade of the rainbow, wore bold and glittery clothes, decorated herself with earrings, rings, and piercings, and always did stunning makeup. With the rise of the internet, Stephanie began earning income by expanding her YouTube channel, where she demonstrated creative looks on camera and promoted her own cosmetic brand. It was during cosmetology school that Stephanie met her boyfriend, Tom Senator, who was studying to become a hairstylist. Tom matched her ideal type: perfectly light blue eyes, dark hair, a tongue piercing, and tattoos covering his body. Although his appearance gave off a rebellious charm, he was kind and gentle. They began dating in October 2013, attending concerts and music festivals, spending time at the beach, visiting nightclubs, and cheering at hockey games together. Tom shared Stephanie's enthusiasm for cosmetology, fitness, family time, and nightlife. Their relationship deepened, founded on shared goals and mutual encouragement. Not long after, Stephanie began working at a nail salon while continuing to refine her makeup skills by practicing on her younger sisters. In 2015, Parz enrolled in the School of Art, majoring in fine and applied arts. She launched a social media account named Wild Rose Art, where she sold handmade clay jewelry. 5 of her creations were nominated for the Spring Art Award and exhibited in a local gallery. The following year, Stephanie took advanced courses at the Makeup Academy and landed a position at a beauty salon that specialized in brow and lash styling. Then came her biggest breakthrough. Stephanie was invited to work as a makeup artist for New York Fashion Week. For her growing career, this was a tremendous milestone. She developed her own brand called CNP, using the initials of her name, and continued experimenting with special effects makeup while promoting her services online. Stephanie's greatest ambition was to keep doing what she loved and eventually become her own boss, and she worked tirelessly toward that dream. Stephanie often shared photos with her boyfriend on social media, writing heartfelt captions to thank him for his support and to express her love. Despite facing a few challenges in their relationship, the couple celebrated their 3rd anniversary in October 2016. But after Valentine's Day in 2017, they decided to part ways, staying friends. Stephanie, who had once dreamed of spending her life with Tom, was heartbroken. Around that time, she moved in with her grandmother, who was battling a terminal illness. Stephanie became the elderly woman's primary caregiver, balancing her work, studies, and constant nursing duties. That same year, Parz launched another YouTube channel where she uploaded tutorials featuring diverse makeup styles. Her signature looks were inspired by horror movie icons such as Pennywise, Joker, and Coraline. By blending eerie designs with glamorous touches, Stephanie created unique artistic expressions. She mastered the art of crafting lifelike wounds and gruesome effects on faces and hands using special effects makeup. Her talent became especially sought after for Halloween and themed parties. Stephanie viewed special effects artistry as her true calling, one that perfectly suited her imaginative mind. Her career continued to flourish. She worked in different salons as a makeup artist, manager, and waxing specialist, all while taking advanced professional courses. Because of her fondness for children, she also babysat, caring for a neighbor's daughter whenever she could. In 2018, Stephanie's grandmother, whom she had been caring for, passed away and left her the house and pets. The property was just 10 minutes from her parents' home. It offered plenty of room for one person: 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a spacious outdoor terrace, and a large backyard perfect for her dogs. At first, Stephanie comforted her loneliness by spending time with the animals left under her care after her grandmother's passing. Yet, pets could not replace genuine human connection. Before long, she began seeing a man named Michael Areno. Stephanie's new boyfriend worked as a roofer. He was tall, with curly chestnut hair and a bright, friendly smile. They connected through their shared love of hockey, but the relationship didn't last long. Eventually, Parz realized he wasn't the right person for her. She told Michael the truth and, after their breakup, threw herself back into her work. Recently, Stephanie had noticed she had gained some weight and decided it was time to take better care of herself. After the separation, Michael continued expressing his love for her, but Stephanie stood firm in her decision, convinced she couldn't be happy with him. The truth was, she was searching for more than just a boyfriend. At her age, Stephanie was seriously considering starting a family and having children of her own. Her parents, Ed and Charlene, had set a shining example of love and partnership, and she refused to settle for anything less. Once again, without a partner's support, Steph turned to dating apps in hopes of finding true love. Her father, Edward, was far from pleased about his daughter's decision. Working in the sheriff's department, he understood better than most how unpredictable and even dangerous online dating could be. Both Charlene and Ed had always made it clear to their daughters that they must never allow anyone to pressure them, humiliate them in public, or touch them without consent, let alone tolerate a man raising his hand against them. The couple's lifelong message was simple. Their daughters deserved relationships built on love, kindness, and trust. Since childhood, Ed and Charlene had modeled that kind of respect through their marriage. Edward urged Stephanie to be extremely cautious with strangers she met online. "You never truly know who's behind the screen," he warned. Stephanie only laughed, teasing her father that he was just old-fashioned and overly protective. At 25, Stephanie felt time slipping away. She wanted to meet someone soon, before she felt too old to start a family. One of her younger sisters had recently become a mother, and Stephanie didn't even have a boyfriend. She dreamed of finding a partner, settling down, and raising children of her own. It was difficult for Edward to argue with her feelings. After all, he had met Charlene back in high school and couldn't entirely relate to the modern world of dating apps. Still, he reminded his daughter that trust and mutual respect were the foundation of any lasting relationship. Meanwhile, Stephanie kept scrolling through men's profiles on dating apps. She enjoyed the attention and the compliments that came her way. Before agreeing to meet anyone, she would usually spend several weeks chatting through messages to get a better sense of who they were. That was how she met 29-year-old John Osbeilen. Their first conversations took place over messaging apps. John told her he worked as a stockbroker in Staten Island. He came across as a romantic and seemed to know exactly how to charm a woman. He was also older than her previous boyfriends, which made Stephanie believe he might be more mature and serious about relationships. Convinced, she agreed to go out with him. When they finally met, John appeared exactly as he had described himself, a tall, attractive man with a solid job and the stability to support not only himself, but potentially a family in the future. The two began seeing each other more often, going out for dinner, walking on the beach, and enjoying quiet evenings together. However, after just a few dates, Stephanie sensed they were too different. John tended to be overly emotional and often lost his temper when they disagreed. A few of his angry outbursts left her uncomfortable, and she soon decided it was best to distance herself from him and return to the dating apps once more. Then, in August 2019, something terrifying happened. Stephanie woke up suddenly in the middle of the night, unable to breathe. It felt as though her lungs were filling with water. Panic-stricken, she called her parents. Her father rushed her to the hospital, where doctors diagnosed her with a severe infection and double pneumonia. Pneumonia is rarely fatal, yet Stephanie's case was dangerously close. She spent several days hospitalized, leaving her family deeply worried. On August 9, still in her hospital gown and connected to a breathing machine, Stephanie filmed a message for her followers. She spoke about the dangers of vaping, explaining that it had nearly cost her life, and urged others to quit. Her words revealed her compassion and concern for others' well-being. Stephanie shared how weak she had been in the first days of recovery, so frail she couldn't even turn over in bed without calling a nurse for help. It was all the result of a harmful habit she wished she had never started. During her stay, her parents and sisters visited her daily, offering constant love and support. Surprisingly, John Osbeilen, whom she had broken up with not long before, also came to see her. He expressed his concern and told her he wanted to help in any way he could. True to his word, John visited Stephanie every day, bringing flowers, small gifts, and listening as she spoke about her fears. His care and attention touched her deeply. Stephanie began to realize that, despite their past disagreements, she truly mattered to John, and that made her happy once again. After Stephanie recovered and was released from the hospital, she and John took a weekend getaway to Atlantic City to unwind by the beach. While in their hotel room, John surprised her with a romantic gesture. He slipped a handwritten note among the drinks, officially asking her to be his girlfriend. Stephanie happily said yes without hesitation. However, her parents didn't share her excitement. From their first encounter, Ed and Charlene sensed something off about John. Though there was no clear reason for their discomfort, the feeling was mutual. John didn't like them either. He began subtly undermining Stephanie's bond with her family, avoiding family trips and discouraging her from visiting her parents. Soon, they noticed their daughter was coming. Ed and Charlene, being straightforward people, didn't hide their concerns. They told Stephanie they weren't fond of her boyfriend. She defended John, insisting he was just shy and misunderstood. Despite valuing her parents' opinion deeply, she was too in love to see any red flags. At first, their relationship truly felt like a dream. Stephanie was happy, and her online presence reflected that joy. Her makeup career flourished, she gained new clients, and her talent drew admiration both online and in person. But her success quickly began to bother John. He resented the attention she received from others and disliked the time she spent filming videos, chatting on social media, and managing her growing audience. He didn't want to share her with anyone. Stephanie soon found herself torn between her passion and her relationship. Over time, their romance began to crumble again. By late September, Stephanie updated her social media status to single. This time, she wasn't eager to rush into another relationship. She focused instead on family, especially her newborn nephew, and began babysitting for her neighbors again, something she enjoyed. Then, October arrived, and Halloween was just around the corner. During that period, strange and frightening events began happening around Stephanie's house, leaving her uneasy in her own home. She called her mother, frightened, and said she believed her grandmother's house was haunted. Stephanie was convinced that something dark had taken hold of the place. Otherwise, who or what could be causing things to move in locked rooms? One evening, after returning home from work, she walked into the bathroom and froze. There were several handprints smeared across the mirror. The marks were oddly long and thin, stretched in strange patterns that reminded her of Slender Man's eerie fingers, a fictional creature she'd seen in horror stories. Stephanie recorded a short video and posted it online, showing the disturbing sight. Naturally, she was terrified. She hadn't touched the mirror herself, and no one else had been in the house. She couldn't understand who or what had left those prints behind. Stephanie cleaned the mirror and tried to push the unsettling memory out of her mind. But just a couple of days later, she came home to another disturbing scene. One of her parrots was lying lifeless at the bottom of its cage. The bird had shown no signs of illness the day before, and its sudden death sent Stephanie into a panic. Fearing something strange was happening in the house, she borrowed a baby monitor from her sister and placed it near the front door so she could hear any noise in the hallway from her bedroom. Stephanie wasn't easily frightened, yet the combination of eerie holiday energy and the bizarre events unfolding around her began to take a toll. Living alone in a home where someone had recently passed away was already difficult. Now, as Halloween drew closer, her anxiety steadily grew. It felt as if the darkness of the season wasn't just meant to frighten, but could actually harm her. Deep down, Stephanie couldn't shake the feeling that something ominous was approaching. 3 weeks after the strange handprints appeared on her mirror and the death of her bird, the date was the 30th of October 2019, the day before Halloween. That evening, Stephanie joined her mother and sisters for a psychic show. They were curious to witness a medium supposedly connecting with spirits and predicting the future. Among the Parz women, only the youngest sister, Carissa, was chosen. The psychic pointed her out from the audience and gave her a personal reading. Later, an excited Stephanie shared the experience with her followers on social media. She told them how the psychic had predicted bright success for her sister, but also warned of deep sorrow soon to come, an immense loss that would forever change her life. At the time, no one took the prediction seriously. Carissa was doing well in school, happily dating a boy she adored, and had no reason to expect tragedy. For those who didn't believe in mysticism or fortune-telling, the medium's words sounded like vague statements anyone could hear. The schoolgirl brushed it off and laughed. Yet, the psychic's grim prophecy would stay with Clarissa for the rest of her life. None of them could have known that this shared evening filled with laughter, curiosity, and a touch of Halloween magic would become their final memory together. Because that night, the 30th of October 2019, would be the last time Clarissa ever saw her beloved older sister, Stephanie, alive. After the psychic show, the sisters returned to their parents' house, shared a quiet dinner, talked for a while, and then those who lived separately headed home. Stephanie kissed her mother goodbye and promised to text once she arrived. Her grandmother's house, where she lived, was only a 10-minute drive away. On the road, she messaged her mom through Snapchat, as she often did, sending a photo of their favorite family restaurant and suggesting they visit it together over the weekend. When Charlene asked if she had made it home safely, Stephanie didn't respond. More messages followed, but all were left unanswered. Charlene and Ed assumed their daughter had simply forgotten to turn her phone's sound back on after the psychic show. It seemed reasonable Stephanie might have been tired, gone straight to bed, and overlooked her promise to text. But the next morning, Halloween Day, when Charlene checked Snapchat again, she noticed something unsettling. None of her messages from the previous night had been read. This was completely unlike Stephanie. A wave of unease washed over her mother, who began calling her daughter repeatedly. She knew that by 7 a.m., Stephanie was usually at the neighbor's house where she worked as a babysitter. Still, every call went unanswered. Concern turned quickly to fear. Charlene and Ed dropped everything, jumped into their car, and drove straight to the grandmother's house. When they arrived, Stephanie's white Honda Sonata sat quietly in the driveway. The sight gave them a brief sense of relief. It meant she was likely home, just asleep. Ed stayed in the car while Charlene went up to the door. She knocked several times but got no reply. Her heart pounding, she tried the handle. To her surprise, the front door swung open easily. Stepping cautiously inside, Charlene called out for her daughter, but the house was silent. She disappeared from Ed's view for several minutes, searching each room. When she finally returned to the doorway, she looked pale and anxious, shaking her head as if to say Stephanie wasn't there. The open door deeply unsettled both parents. Knowing how frightened their daughter had recently been, Charlene and Ed couldn't understand why she would leave the house unlocked or where she could have gone so suddenly. Something, they both felt, was terribly wrong. But then Charlene noticed something strange. Lights were still on all over the house in both bathrooms, the attic, the garage, and even the basement. The only sounds inside were the faint barks of the dogs echoing through the quiet rooms. It looked as if Stephanie had gone from one place to another, switching on lights everywhere, as though she had been making sure no one or nothing was hiding there. One of the dogs was locked in the bathroom, which was unusual. Stephanie never confined her pets. Charlene opened the door and let the animal out before heading to her daughter's bedroom, but the room was empty. The coat and shoes Stephanie had worn to the psychic show were lying neatly beside the living room couch. That meant she had made it home that night, perhaps gone to bed, and somehow disappeared by morning. The whole scene left her parents confused and deeply worried. Charlene and Ed returned home and began calling Stephanie's sisters and friends, hoping someone had heard from her. No one had, and no one could reach her either. It was strange, since Stephanie always kept her phone with her. Because of her online work, she was constantly connected, rarely putting her mobile down. The silence was unlike her. As hours passed with no word, Charlene's anxiety grew. She went back to Stephanie's house, this time with her youngest daughter, Clarissa, determined to look for clues about where she might have gone. The two carefully searched every room. When Charlene opened the nightstand drawer, she found a large kitchen knife inside. That discovery sent a chill through her. Stephanie must have been so frightened that she kept a weapon close for protection. Yet her wallet, phone, and keys were nowhere to be found. On top of the piano sat leftovers from the night before snacks they had bought at the psychic show. What could have made Stephanie leave so suddenly, without turning off the lights, locking the door, or even putting the food away? Could there be an even creepier reason why Stephanie wasn't answering her phone? Charlene decided to call her daughter's number again, and to her shock, the phone rang from somewhere nearby. After searching, they found the mobile wedged between the couch cushions, a terrifying discovery. Stephanie never let her phone out of her sight, let alone leave the house without it. Neither Charlene nor Clarissa could unlock the device because of the password, but notifications were visible on the lock screen. Among them were numerous text messages, including one from the woman whose child Stephanie was supposed to babysit that morning. Clearly, she hadn't gone to work. In that instant, Clarissa remembered the psychic's warning, and a chilling thought struck her. Her sister's disappearance could be the sorrow the medium had predicted. The high schooler couldn't help but feel partly responsible for what had happened. When Charlene told Ed about the phone and the mysterious circumstances, a burning unease spread through him. As a member of the sheriff's department, he knew that a missing adult report could not be officially filed until 24 hours had passed. The first hours after a disappearance were crucial, yet police protocols meant searches wouldn't begin immediately. Still, Ed and Charlene refused to waste any time. They immediately contacted everyone who knew Stephanie, hoping someone had seen her or could provide a clue about her whereabouts. Then they began canvassing the neighborhood themselves, showing neighbors her photo and asking if anyone had noticed anything unusual. They spoke to all of Stephanie's neighbors and acquaintances, but no one had any information that could explain her sudden disappearance. One of Stephanie's sisters managed to access her social media account. She discovered several messages from different people, including former boyfriend John Osbelin. He was the last person to contact Stephanie the previous evening. Some messages had not yet been read. From John's texts, it was clear he was agitated. He used emotionally charged phrases like, "Where are you? I feel terrible. Why are you ignoring me again?" He accused Stephanie of ruining their relationship. Naturally, she hadn't responded, as she had spent the entire evening with her mother and sisters. Additionally, she and John had broken up back in September. Stephanie's sister, after reading the messages, reached out to John directly from her own social media account, asking if he knew her sister's whereabouts. "Within an hour," he responded, claiming that on Halloween Eve he had gone to Stephanie's house and stayed the night. He said that at 7 a.m. They woke up and he left because she needed to get to her babysitting job. According to John, he hadn't seen her since. That meant he was the last person to communicate with Stephanie before she disappeared. Finally, Charlene called 911 to report her daughter missing. She explained to the dispatcher that she last saw Stephanie on October 30 at 10 p.m. After that, her daughter hadn't called or messaged to confirm she got home safely, even though her car remained in the driveway. Charlene also mentioned that John had seen Stephanie the previous night and spent the night at her house. After leaving in the morning, he had not heard from her either. Panic and fear were evident in Charlene's voice. The detective handling the case tried to reassure her, promising that police would do everything possible to bring Stephanie home safely. Still, the words offered little comfort. On some level, Charlene sensed something terrible had happened and feared she might never see her daughter again. On Monday, November 1, a team of officers searched Stephanie's house and found no signs of forced entry. If John was telling the truth, then it was possible that someone else had entered the house after he left. At least this could explain why Stephanie hadn't taken her phone or locked the front door. Her keys, after all, were still in the car. Meanwhile, one of her sisters logged into Stephanie's social media and posted a message asking followers for any information about her whereabouts. The post quickly drew over 600 comments from concerned fans. Many expressed worry that her disappearance had happened so close to Halloween. Some claimed to have seen her in neighboring towns, while others suggested contacting a medium or psychic. Unfortunately, a few malicious individuals even posted suggestions about where to search for her body. The tips were numerous and varied, but nearly all were unhelpful. News outlets picked up the story almost immediately, reporting on the girl who had vanished on Halloween night. The coverage expanded the search geographically, and Stephanie was now being sought not only in Freehold, but also in surrounding towns across the state. Police needed to investigate all of Stephanie's former boyfriends. Their first focus was John Osbelin, the last person known to have seen her alive. Detectives obtained a warrant to examine John's cell phone, computer, and his parents' house, which was just a 13-minute drive from Stephanie's home. Nothing linked Stephanie to the Osbylen residence. John cooperated fully. He went to the station for questioning and repeated the same story he had told Stephanie's sister. During the interview, detectives noticed some unusual scratches on his neck. Examining his messages revealed more evidence of his volatile behavior. After their breakup on September 23, John had continued texting Stephanie, refusing to accept the split. He exhibited possessive tendencies, attempted to control her actions, and bombarded her with a constant stream of messages. Stephanie could have blocked John, but she feared it would make the situation worse. Freehold police suspected that when she didn't respond because her phone was on silent, John might have gone to her house and waited at the door. He lived nearby and had the opportunity. However, investigators were careful not to jump to conclusions. Besides John, Stephanie had other ex-boyfriends, and each needed to be considered. Detectives explored several possibilities. Had Stephanie left the house out of fear of evil spirits? Could she have been kidnapped or held against her will? Or had the worst happened and she was already dead? Stephanie's father, Ed, wrestled with the same questions. His imagination ran wild, making him feel as if he were losing control. In the meantime, the family distributed flyers, hoping someone might have seen their daughter. While law enforcement analyzed case files and tried to determine a search area, Stephanie's parents, friends, and about 200 volunteers searched nearby forests, riverbanks, and trash containers. During one search, they found a pile of black garbage bags tied together. Ed could not bring himself to open them. When someone cut one bag open, dark red liquid spilled out. His heart nearly stopped, fearing it was his daughter inside, but it was only a dead deer. He thanked God it wasn't Stephanie, though the horrifying vision stayed in his mind for a long time. The search continued day after day. Investigators examined John's phone and other devices, reviewing texts, locations, and geolocation data. According to the information, the ex-boyfriend had indeed spent Halloween night at Stephanie's house. This confirmed he was the last person known to be with her, though it still didn't explain what had happened afterward. The following day, John drove toward his work as usual. Everything seemed ordinary, except that he ended up at Clay Pit Ponds Park, a marshy nature reserve on the south shore of Staten Island, about 50 kilometers from Stephanie's home. He stayed there for 6 hours before returning to New Jersey. The stop looked highly suspicious. If someone wanted to dispose of a body, the remote park would have been an ideal location. A search team of 200 law enforcement officers, New York Police K, 9 units, and helicopters was dispatched to Clay Pit Ponds Park. They combed the area thoroughly but found no trace of Stephanie. Meanwhile, another team of investigators discovered a disturbing photo on John's phone involving child abuse. John claimed he had no idea how the image had appeared on his device. Nevertheless, he was taken into custody for possible third-degree child endangerment and placed temporarily in the Monmouth County Correctional Facility in New Jersey. If convicted, John faced up to 5 years in prison. John Osbylen was born in July 1990 inches, Brooklyn. His father worked as a bus driver and his mother was a cosmetologist. John and his brothers were raised in the Rossville neighborhood on Staten Island's South Shore. He graduated from high school and pursued a career as a stockbroker. He also practiced bodybuilding and was considered attractive and popular among women. John's criminal history included 4 prior complaints. The first involved an ex-girlfriend from New York who filed a restraining order against him. Another woman alleged that he had crossed sexual boundaries, choking her until she lost consciousness. She later withdrew the complaint, unwilling to face him in court. In June 2019, a third woman reported John for violent behavior, claiming he had hit her. The 4th complaint came more recently, on September 23. From the contents of John Osbylen's phone, it became clear that Stephanie was the only person he had been regularly communicating with in recent months. He also messaged a dozen other women at the same time. Unfortunately, 11 days later, John was released on bail at his lawyer's request. Police could not yet charge him in connection with Stephanie's disappearance because no concrete evidence linked him to the case. The immediate consequences of his brief arrest were that John could no longer use the internet, and he had to find a new job after being fired from his previous one. Charlene and Ed began recalling all events involving John Osbylen. They spoke to Stephanie's friends and learned that the first time she broke up with him, it was because he had grabbed her by the throat and pinned her against a wall, causing her to bleed. The following day, Stephanie ended the relationship but did not tell her parents the full truth. If Stephanie had not later ended up in the hospital with pneumonia, and if John hadn't sat by her bedside during that time, she might never have forgiven him. He spent those days convincing her to return to the relationship, and eventually she did. On September 23, as the Parz family prepared for bed, the phone rang. Charlene first heard a scuffle, then Stephanie's hoarse voice saying, "John hit her," before the call abruptly ended. Her mother immediately called 911, and Ed rushed to Stephanie's house. When he arrived, he saw a girl running barefoot in pajamas. It was his daughter, covered in blood. Ed quickly stopped the car, helped her inside, and seated her in the passenger seat. Police were already at the house, ensuring nothing rash occurred. Ed was furious and barely restrained himself from harming John. Osbylen was arrested, and Stephanie was taken to the police station to file charges. She was in shock, but reported that John had hit her on the head and arm so forcefully that she bled. Later, she confided to her father that she did not want to press charges, hoping to leave the incident behind quickly. Ed could not understand her choice, but Stephanie, as an adult, decided for herself. After such a violent encounter, the relationship was over. On her social media, Stephanie posted, "Starting over is okay. Moving on is okay. Saying no is okay. Being alone is okay." She was beginning to rebuild her life after having her self-esteem destroyed by a violent and controlling man. Stephanie had no idea that John Osbylen regularly communicated with other women, and she didn't know this behavior was typical for him. If someone had warned her, perhaps her parents wouldn't have been spending each morning searching for their daughter, and Stephanie might still have been alive. Ed Parz despised John with every fiber of his being. At the time, John was under house arrest, and Ed was almost certain he was involved in Stephanie's disappearance. Unfortunately, there was nothing he could do. He could not force the man to reveal where Stephanie had been taken. On November 22, nearly a month after his daughter vanished, Ed received an anonymous phone call at 4:30 a.m. The voice on the other end simply said, "He's dead," and then hung up. It took Ed a moment to understand, but when the meaning sank in, he had a complete breakdown. He screamed, punched walls, and threw objects, overwhelmed by the thought that they might never discover what had happened to Stephanie. Ed got into his car and drove straight to John's house. Officers were already present, asking him to go home and warning he could be arrested if he didn't comply. But Ed needed to know the truth. Had John left a suicide note, and what had really happened? Police refused to provide any information. John Osbylen's body was discovered in the garage just 3 days after his release from jail. At that point, detectives had no further information. Ed tried to reconcile the news with reality and returned home to inform his family. The search for justice in Stephanie's case had reached a dead end, leaving him unsure what to do next. The Parz family spent their first Christmas without Stephanie. Even as time passed, her parents refused to stop searching. Over 87 days, relatives, friends, and volunteers searched 88 different locations in Freehold and surrounding areas. Ed posted the meeting place and time on his social media in advance, warning participants to dress warmly as searches could last until late evening. Finally, on Sunday, the 26th of January 2020, Stephanie was found. 2 young men from New Jersey, aged 17 and 18, were walking along the highway shoulder on their way to work when they noticed something unusual in the bushes behind a guardrail. At first glance, it appeared to be a mannequin, but as they approached, they realized it was a human body. Stephanie's body was lying face down, arms raised, as though she had accidentally fallen asleep beneath a tree. The 2 teens immediately called the police. Several emergency teams responded to the scene. Though the remains were only 5 to 6 meters from the road, passing drivers could not see the ditch behind the guardrail. Only a pedestrian walking nearby might have noticed. Because the highway was mostly traveled by cars, no one saw the body lying below. A friend called Ed Parz and urged him to turn on the news. The distraught father watched a place he had passed dozens of times over the past 3 months. It was a familiar dump near the highway, where someone appeared to have stopped on the shoulder and pushed the body into the ditch. A tree concealed it from view. The most heart-wrenching detail was the location. It was very close to the banquet hall where Ed and Charlene had been married, where Stephanie had enjoyed her prom in a beautiful purple dress, and now she had been discarded like unwanted trash. Ed and Charlene called the 2 teens who discovered Stephanie, praising them as angels sent for a purpose. The young men, aware of the girl who had vanished on Halloween Eve, were glad their discovery could finally provide answers. The autopsy confirmed Ed and Charlene's worst fears. It was indeed Stephanie, missing for almost 3 months. Her body showed severe decomposition from exposure to the elements, preventing medical examiners from determining the exact cause of death. However, considering John Osbyland's past accusations and violent behavior, investigators suspected Stephanie had died from asphyxiation. The ex-boyfriend was believed responsible, and his suicide soon afterward seemed linked to the crime. With Stephanie found, detectives could finally close the case. John's parents denied any involvement in their son's actions and offered condolences, suggesting he could not handle the pressure and false accusations from police and others. Their confidence was based solely on what John had told them, as they never witnessed his behavior alone with women. Before taking his life, John left 2 handwritten notes. Ed and Charlene discovered them only after Stephanie's body was recovered. One note, addressed to his parents, apologized and explained he could not endure life behind bars. He admitted he had been truly happy only once, with the New York woman who filed a restraining order and requested her photo be used at his funeral. The second note, to that same woman, blamed Stephanie for chaos in his life and described how he felt repeatedly hurt by her. Neither note revealed where Stephanie's body was hidden or explicitly claimed responsibility for her death. Detectives suspected John may have hinted at the crime to his parents via messages, but they refused to provide information, prompting an investigation into obstruction of justice. John's parents refused to cooperate with the investigation, protecting their son's memory after he had voluntarily ended his life. Stephanie's funeral was held at the Church of Street Rose of Lima. She was laid to rest in a white and gold coffin. In tribute, Ed posted a heartfelt message to his daughter on social media. "Stephanie, my angel, sleep peacefully. Mom bought you a beautiful soft outfit and blanket to keep you warm. Today is a hard day, baby. Close your eyes and rest. See you later." Those days were the hardest the Parz family had ever endured. No parent should have to bury a child. Ed couldn't even look at Stephanie's photo, fearing his strength would fail him. He tried to stay strong to support Charlene and the younger daughters. Ed promised himself that Stephanie's legacy would live on and that her story could help other women. Of course, the Parz family's life would never be the same. Yet, they were relieved to have Stephanie home now, even if only in memory, and could honor her. On February 19th, 2020, the family gathered once again to celebrate what would have been Stephanie's 26th birthday. They held a candlelight vigil attended by over 1,800 people, honoring her memory. During the vigil, Ed noted a bright star shining in the sky, giving the family a sense that Stephanie was watching over them. Investigators ultimately concluded that John Osbyland had repeatedly used violence against Stephanie. Thanks to her talent as a makeup artist, she had been able to conceal the signs of his beatings. But once her family became involved, Stephanie made a firm decision to end the toxic relationship. John reacted by trying to assert even more control over her. He attempted to frighten Steph, thinking it would make her return to him. When Stephanie ignored his messages on Halloween Eve, John became furious and drove to her house, behaving as if they were still a couple. What occurred inside can only be speculated, but it appeared to be a classic case of, if I can't have you, no one can. If John could not have Stephanie, he refused to let anyone else. After the attack, Osbyland dragged her body to the back door. To move his car closer, he needed to relocate Stephanie's vehicle, but he couldn't find her phone or Honda Sonata keys. He turned on lights, searching every room, the attic, and the basement. Eventually finding the keys, he moved Stephanie's car to the driveway. John then pulled up to the back door to load the body into his car unnoticed, all under the cover of night. He drove along the highway toward Staten Island, but halfway turned around, captured briefly on a road camera. Most likely, John stopped on the shoulder, choosing a moment when no other vehicles were nearby. He quietly threw Stephanie's body over the guardrail and continued toward Clay Pit Ponds Park, possibly to mislead authorities or simply to delay returning home. Ed Parz felt helpless for not protecting his daughter from the obsessive boyfriend, but what could a father do if Stephanie herself was not ready to press charges? In memory of their deceased daughter, Charlene and Ed established the Stephanie Nicole Parz Foundation to combat domestic violence and support families of missing persons. The foundation aids those facing similar challenges and teaches safety measures. Ed shares guidance with parents on how to respond when their child reports intimate partner violence. Stephanie Nicole Parz had achieved online success and aspired to be a devoted wife and responsible mother. But tragically, one dark, unchangeable person destroyed her bright future. If you finished reading, you are a true fan of true crime. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and give a like. See you in the next story.